and welcome to another DDD deck profile / guide this time around. It's been voted on Twitter, Instagram, as well as the two Facebook groups that I just decided to put this vote on, that this will be the deck that we will do again, or should I say, update. And I'm going to say this is going to be a very, very long video, so I'm just going to skip right into it as much as possible. And I did want to do it at the end of the week, last week, but I was a little bit feeling a little bit of burnout, and also there are other things I wanted to do, and I just felt like really under the weather, so I decided not to do it. But we have this now, so hope you enjoy that. And I'm going to remind you once again that a subscriber a day keep the depression away. It's really helped me and helped the channel. So if you want to see more awesome videos like this, it's really helped me if you're just going to, stay around, subscribe, let me know what your thoughts and how I should improve, because feedback is always very, very much appreciated, as long as, of course, a building feedback. And you're also more than welcome to join my giveaway. But yeah, I don't really think there's anything much to say except, yugitubers in the cards in the description down below if you want to check some awesome ones. There is a little bit of a surprise at the end of the week for something, but other than that, I think we should jump right into it because there are a lot of things to cover up. So let's jump right into it. Alright, so as for the deck itself, I'm just going to go a little bit into the cards, not way too much in detail, because most of the cards are either known or, you just know them. Also, I did reveal that I get finally an Into the Void, and this is the original set version. But regardless, let's jump right into it. And I'm going to say this lastly, before we're actually going to explain everything. This is just the hardwired going first version, so for anybody who's asking, there is no hand traps here, just because, like I said, this is the hardwired going first. If you are going second, or you are going to locals, do change it a little bit, but this is the way that I think you should run the deck if you are just sure you are going to go first. And of course, everybody want to go first, so this is just pretty much the most optimal list for these, and they cannot really run hand traps in their deck for the most part if they're going first. So let's get started with the trio of the important cards. We're running 3 copies of Cyril Slime, 3 copies of Lamia, 3 copies of Necro Slime. These are pretty obvious at this point. Nothing really much to say about these except that, anybody who doesn't say to you that this is the most important card in your deck is absolutely wrong. Cyril Slime is absolutely ridiculously important. You have to open it up with it in your opening hand, because if you don't, you're pretty much screwed, because you do need him for a lot of your plays. It's absolutely ridiculous how many plays you need him for. The special summon from hand, the fusion from hand is so important. And these two are mostly your extenders, but this one is just so important to open up with. And in order to get to him even faster, or, playing additional 6 copies of him, I guess, you're playing 3 copies of Kepler, which then search your gates, which is another 3 copies. Then you're playing 3 copies of Copernicus, which is another starter. War starter, but still another starter. You can get this into your graveyard if you need to, the special summon from hand, but most of the time it's good to get one of these 2 to the graveyard and just kind of help you in that front. And then lastly, we're running, for the 3-offs, we're running 3 copies of Oblivion King Ragnarok. It's pretty much your Monster Reborn from the scale or on your Monster Zone, which is something that I should mention, because we do run a card that is essentially able to summon it out of your scale, so you can do that. And one thing I would mention as well, this guy, which I really like to have his copy in real life, but this guy, one thing that a lot of people don't know about this guy is that in ruling, you cannot summon 2 pendulum monsters, or at least that's how I encounter this. You cannot summon place 2 pendulum monsters out of your deck. If you have a card in your pendulum zone, that's what I'm trying to say, you cannot place the other one, because you have to place exactly 2. You cannot place 2 or less cards. It doesn't say up to 2. It says 2 DD monsters from your deck. Therefore, if you have this in your scale or any other of these, it's pretty much not letting you to use Gilgamesh. So do keep that in advance. That's the reason why we just essentially run some ways to get this out of your scale, or other cards out of your scale if you have to. And that's pretty much does it for the 3-offs. For the only 2-off in the deck, which we're going to get into it right now, we're running the 2 copies of the one and only man himself, Ghost. which is a very, very much underappreciated monster. Ghost is pretty much excellent card. This guy is your what do you call it? It's a foolish burial if it's sent to the graveyard for cards that's already in your graveyard, so it's foolish burial and have a copy, which sounds a little bit weird, but sometimes it's actually really helpful. And then when it gets banished, it's put anything you want back from your banish except itself. And also it can foolish burial anything except itself. And honestly, another thing about him to say is that both of his effects are not a hard ones per turn, which is absolutely ridiculous. And then for the other DDD monster, which we need to run for the Gilgamesh, we're running one copy of King Apocalypse. And then the honorary DDD, or should I say the other option, if you are stuck, I do run the Buster Sword. Because, like I mentioned, sometimes you do have Ragnarok near scale and you cannot really go into Gilgamesh. Or, like, your resources in the graveyard are not that good enough. So I felt like running the one copy of Destruction Sword was a pretty good choice. It's also another tuner if you need to. It's a level 1 as well. It's a dark. It's just really good. And what it does, you equip it with your Union Carrier, which mostly you're going to do in your combos anyway, and just giving you another kind of layer of protection in a way. So if they like Dark Ruler use, they still need to have another card essentially to break your board. So this is just really good just to have, because sometimes, like, even if they just open up with the Dark Ruler, they still need like an evenly matched and stuff like that to just like break your board, which just works really well because Infinite doesn't really work on this, so it's just really stupid that this card is just it exists. It's so dumb, and this card probably going to get banned pretty much soon-ish if we're going to have regional play. But for the time being, enjoy it while it lasts. It's just a really good card to have and summon with your Union Carry. And that's pretty much does it for the monsters. Now I'll move on to the spells. So for the spells themselves, we're running 3 copies of Gate, as well as the 1 copy of Swamp King. Gate is pretty much your searcher, and Swamp King is your worst Necro Slime / Zero Slime, depending on the situation. You don't always need this, but just having this as an option to search is actually better than I thought. I still don't really like the card, but it's still just good to have, so you can search it with Kepler if you need to. Then for your other extenders, we're running 2 copies of Where Art Thou, 1 copy of Foolish Burial, and 1 copy of 1-for-1. These are your pretty much starters / extenders. 1-for-1 is a starter, Foolish Burial is an extender / starter, depending on the situation. And Where Art Thou is just extender, pretty much. It cannot really do anything for starter because you do need to control level 1, but it can either grab you a Kepler, a Lamia, or a Necro Slime, depending on the situation. Obviously, it's most of the time going to be Lamia or Necro Slime, but it's just really good to have the option to grab them because it's just really cool. And then for your draw power spells, which one of them you already seen, we're running 3 copies of Allure Darkness, 2 copies of Upon Desires, 1 copy of the Upstart Goblin, which decided to fly out of my hand, and then the 1 copy of Into the Void. These are your draw power, 7 cards. These 2 just serve as the 38 deck consistency. This one is really good going first, which, like I said, you have to see this guy as much as possible in your hand. So yeah, but if you specifically don't want to run this, you're more than welcome to. Obviously, like I said, if you're going, you're going to go first, you want to run these. But if you don't, that's up to you. And Lower Darkness, everything is dark. But I do seen some people don't run Pod Desires. And for anybody who thinks that this card is still expensive, it's not. It's going to be accessible, so you're more than welcome to grab your copies of it, either in Toon Chaos or the new Sacred Beast structure deck. You're more than welcome to grab those. And I do still think that Bond Desires is very excellent in here, because like I said, this one is the most important card in your deck, and you want to see it as much as possible. So this is just giving you an additional, like, 4 copies of Sword, or should I say, like, 4 additional ways to see him overall. I don't like the 3 copies, but the 2 copies just worked quite nicely for me. That's it for the draw power. Lastly, we're running the one, the only, because we don't want to get hand traps, 3 copies of Cold by the Grave, which is a card that you want to side going second, because it doesn't really do anything. Most of the time you're going to switch this with Dark Ruler, but just, you know, it's still very useful if you're going first. And that's it for the main deck. Now we'll move on to the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're running the one copy of the newly acquired for me, Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh is absolutely ridiculous. You need to have this in your extra deck for most of your combos. Obviously, like I said again, sometimes it doesn't really go off because like you have a card in your scale or you banish the Apocalypse. Therefore, we have the other option. But like it just, I really like this card. It's really excellent and just doing a whole lot for the deck. Another one to extend your combos and play is the one copy of Hakifibrax. Very expensive, yes, very much not accessible for everybody, could be, but I just think like this card does so much, and I know that a lot of people hate him, but this card for this deck specifically, if it just was for this deck specifically, it was doing so much for the deck. I wish it just was for DDD specifically, but yeah, it's an excellent card for a deck like this. It's just absolutely amazing. Pull that tuner that you need out of your deck. Either the Lamia or the Ghost, depending on the situation. And they already don't really have an effect on the field, so that just really work perfectly with you. And the effect of Formula is also pretty nice. And then, one copy of Cross Sheep. You do have a lot of mechanics, but you are only going to use the Fusion most of the time, and just to really help your plays. And lastly, we have to proxy, unfortunately, but we have to. We run the one copy of Union Carrier, because Union Carrier is part of your lock, which you're going to see in the combo, which works really, really nicely. That's it for the links. Now we'll move on to the fusions, which we're running 3 of them, which is pretty obvious which one we run. We run 2 copies of the small Genghis and 1 copy of the big Genghis. Nothing really much to explain about these guys. They're just free special summons, I guess. That's pretty much what they do, in the case of the most part. For the only XCs we run 1 copy of the Caesar. I know there's some people, like probably in the comments, going to ask me where is Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga is not really good, as I noticed, going first / not good in every single matchup. So I do run it in the side. We are going to side, Union Carrier and Buster when we're going second, because there are really no points. So like sometimes in game 1 you're not going to play the Buster, but it's still giving you the options of like Kali Yuga is just really, really excellent. And we do run this side. I do think it's still very, very good to have, but like in the hardwired going first version, you obviously don't want to run it because it doesn't really do anything for you for the most part. It's only just good against Ultra guys. So this one is just pretty much the only XCs that you run, which is pretty good for the most part. And the deck is already kind of tight, so that works, I guess. Then for your Synchros, which is the biggest chunk of the extra deck, again, you can cut one of these for the Kali Yuga if you want to, which we'll discuss him. Because 13 of these cards, excluding Union Carrier and it, are mandatory. But the 13 are mandatory, but these 2, which are Union Carrier and it, are not mandatory, so you're more than welcome to. Following Synchron is because of Hakifibrax, and this is the card that I talked about, which is the 1 copy of Meteor Burst, because this one helps you summon a card from your scale, which, like I said, Gilgamesh doesn't really like you to have any card in your scale when he activates his effect. So this just really helps you in that regard, which I really like. 1 copy of Alexander, because Alexander is excellent, it's needed, it's part of most of your combos. And then 1 copy of Negate, 1 copy of Second Negate, and then 1 copy of Third Negate. These are your Negate cards: Siegfried, Borlord, Savage, and Crystal Wing. I don't know why I said Clear Wing. Crystal Wing. These are very, very, very excellent. You need to have them in your extra deck if you run the expensive version. If you don't, we will go into discuss this in the side, but these are just very, very excellent. And then lastly, 1 copy of Stardust Warrior, because Stardust Warrior is, yeah, it's pretty much part of your Hakifibrax combo, which, again, you could run Satellite Warrior if you don't have the ability to get into this, which I don't really know why you wouldn't. But I guess you can do that, I guess. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And that's pretty much does it for the extra deck and does it for the deck profile baseline itself. We are going to jump right into the side deck with no wasting any more time because we don't really have a lot of time. So let's jump right into it. Alright, so for the side deck, again, we're going to do that a little bit on the quicker side because there's really no reason to just go way too much deep into it. But for the side deck part, we have, for me, One copy of Kali Yuga because, like I said, you want to side this going second / maybe even have it in your main deck if you're going to events. Like I said, Kali Yuga is not really good this format generally because all of the interruptions are going to be monster interruptions. In the case of Eldritch, that also doesn't really help because they're either going to activate their cards before your resolution or just like they will be able to activate like their Conquistador and then just pop your Kali Yuga even after he's just going to destroy all the back row, which kind of sucks. So, it's kind of this way. So I'm just going to say that's why Kali Yuga is in the side. He's pretty much only good against Altergeist, I guess. And because this list is hardwired going first, yeah. But for the rest of the side deck is obviously up to you. For me specifically, I'm going to do it with the cards that I own, which are 3 copies of Ash Blossom, 2 copies of Effect Veiler, 2 copies of Diddy Crow, and 2 copies for Ghost Ogre for my preferred hand options. These are the ones that I decide to go with. Obviously, you can go with something else, but this is what I decided to go with. You can go Nibiru or whatever, but this is the 8, or should I say, yeah, this is the 9 I decided to go with, because I just felt like you siding pretty much for the most part. Ash Blossom instead of like the Cold by the Grave. You also take the 2 Pot of Desires out, the Buster because you're just going first. Then you take the Union Carrier and then 2 additional cards to then just add some of the other cards here because you are also running in the side 3 copies of Dark Ruler No More and 2 copies of Cosmic Cyclone to deal up with back row. So you pretty much going second. You're taking out of your deck 8 cards, which 2 of them are obviously going to be Pot of Desires, because like I mentioned before, Pot of Desires is not really that good going second in this deck, because you're rather drawing to your hand traps, and your opponent are going to stop this anyway, so it's kind of dumb to essentially have it in your main deck going second, if that makes sense. And then you're obviously going to take the Call by the Grave, because Call by the Grave doesn't really help you, and then you're just going to take 3 additional cards, and then you go, or should I say 2 additional cards, because you are also going to take the Buster. So technically, you're going to take these 6 cards, and then 2 additional ones, and you just side up like the 3 Ash, that, let's say in a particular situation, you need a 2 Cosmic, and then 3 the Dark Ruler, and then out of your extra deck, you're taking up the Union Carrier and put up the Kali Yuga. That's pretty much how that goes. Obviously, Cosmic can be one of 2 of the 3 additional hand traps, but yeah, that's pretty much how my side work. It's pretty simple. It's pretty much good for me for every single situation. Obviously, if you have Nibiru, Infinite Impermanence, and Phantasme, you obviously can change the cards here for those as well. But these are the cards that I specifically own, and I want to go with cards that I actually own for this particular side deck. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's move on into the budget options and tech options. Alright, so for the budget options, let's be honest, there are some cards here that are a little bit expensive. Speaking of which we're talking about is Haki Fibrax. We're going to talk about also Union Carrier, and that's pretty much it in the extra deck in the expensive side. However, because of taking Haki Fibrax out, you are going to also take out the Satellite and the Formula, because they're really not that useful if you don't have a Haki Fibrax. So technically you took 4 cards out of your extra deck. Now obviously you can also take out Cross Sheep for the most part, but Cross Sheep is just really, really necessary, way too much in my opinion, to take it out. And also I did forget, there is a 5th one, which is Boral Sword, but Boral Sword will going to get a reprint pretty soon, so maybe we cannot count it, but let's say we do take it out for this one, so we have 5 cards to take out of our extra deck. As our main deck, there are actually not a whole lot of cards to take out. The only card I would say like absolutely high price could be not Instant Fusion, but Into the Void and Absurd Goblin, because Pot of Desire did get 2 additional reprints recently, or is going to get a 2nd one pretty soon, which is a common, and then another one in Toon Chaos, which he got before, like 2 weeks ago, of like a rare, which is pretty nice. So like they're not really high expensive, so you can get them pretty easily. And the rest of the cards, like I said, they're not really that expensive, but if they are still, then you still need them for the rest of them, so it's kind of hard to take these cards out. The rest is really much a core, so you cannot really take it. Obviously, if you don't run the Union Carrier, however, you do going to take out the Buster, so that's 3 cards out of your main deck. So let's talk about the main deck first, just to finish that thought. Main deck, obviously, if you take these 3 cards out, you either can run a hand trap, which can be Ash Blossom, Effect Glitter, whatever you want to, and just have the rest of the cards how they go into. Or you can run additional extenders like Thomas, which is a good one for budget, Um, what's her name again? Vice Typhon, which is really good if you're going to go into a little bit more of a heavier fusion route. And I don't remember the final one. Don't remember. I think these are the only two from the DDD archetype. And you can you can also run Dark Contract with the Witch if you want to. You can run one copy of each, or like have hand traps or combination in the way that you feel like it, or just run some of the cards I mentioned in the side deck in your main deck, and then just put some other cards in the side deck as well. So that's up to you. As for the extra deck, however, because we're taking 5 cards, obviously we're going to take out the Kali Yuga and put it back in because we kind of didn't really have the spot. Because we are just not going to use the new combo of Haki Fibrax or like the newer combos, we're probably going to put back in the extra deck, going to focus a little bit more on the rank 8, so we're going to put as well Hope Harbinger Titanic Galaxy, or number 38, so you can put that as well in your extra deck. Another good option is to put maybe Oracle, the DDD, the Arc, Oracle, whatever, Oracle the Arc. You can put her. She's a good option. You can also put King Bane Beowulf. That's also another option. Another very excellent option, however, is the big fusion Ragnarok Caesar fusion, which is also kind of what's his name again? Kind of a Boros sword for DDD. So you're also more than welcome to put that. You can also put number 90 if you preferred spell negation of monster effects instead of spells in the case of 38. That's also an option. And I'm trying to think in case of links. You do need more links because you do take almost all of your links. So I would say Linkaribo is a good option for the links because you do need to have at least 3 to 4 links in your extra deck to just get things off the field. At least 3 of them, so Linkaribo is good for your level 1s. I would say like just generic level, or should I say Link 2, what her name, Waywitch Apprentice, Beat Cop, or the Fiend related one. These are good options as well. I think Beat Cop will be the best option because it's the most generic. And obviously you can run whatever you want to instead if you can make it easily, because you do need something. Obviously it's not as good as Haki Fibrax because it doesn't really give you resource afterwards, but it's still a very, very nice option, like I said, in order to help you get things off the field. So that's pretty much what you need to do. So yeah, this is pretty much how you're going to go with the main deck and extra deck in terms of the budget. Now we'll move on off to the techs. So let's say again, you don't want specifically to run My Union Carrier / Meteor Burst. You think that these two, you still like the rest of the extra deck, but these 2 cards are just, you don't want them. You still have the rest of the things, but you don't want them. An option number 1 could be to run King Calamity and then another card of your choose from your extra deck. I don't really know what specifically, but you can do that. That specifically could be really good. Another very wonderful option into your extra deck is to run a Crystron small package with the tuner level 4 and then the Synchro that require 2 tuners from the level 9. Which is also really, really good because these 2 can also just giving you options out of awkward situations because sometimes you do end up with like a weird board, so these 2 can just help you with that one. So that's a pretty nice option on that one. And also I did mention once again the Boros Sword of the Archetypes. That's also a pretty good option if you want to run in your extra deck. But yeah, in terms of text, I think there's really not so much. But these are 2 additional, or should I say 3 additional good texts that you can go into. But that's pretty much does it for that. Let's jump right into combos, shall we? Alright, as for the combo section, I'm going to share with you 3 combos, and obviously I kind of like make the deck not shuffle so we can show this. We're not going to count these 2 cards even though you could use them. But for this particular combo, we're going to use the standard 3 cards, but to show you that, you can go around with Union Carrier in your actual combo, and it works quite fine. Another thing to mention is that this is just pretty much going to be, if you want to see the actual combo without Union Carrier, there's a 3rd combo kind of does that as well, but if you want to see the original 5 combos, you're more than welcome to check out my oldest video like 3 months ago, which I also did combos. I did make a mistake on the combo with this ones during the end, and I also decided to do this like this because it's just going to save a little bit more time. But without further ado, let's jump right into it. So the usual things first, obviously Kepler will then search the gate will then search the missing piece, which is Lamia. Then you do the fusion play, make this, banish Soul Slime, summon Lamia, triggering Genghis effect, summoning Necro Slime, summoning Alexander immediately to then summon into your, into other Alexander to then just go into the Cross Sheep. And then you activate this guy effect in the graveyard to then banish itself and the small Genghis to then summon Big Genghis to Cross Sheep Zone, which then will trigger a Cross Sheep effect to give you back the Lamia. Then you're going to use, Big Genghis effect to give you back the Alexander. And then you're going to do something that you usually don't do. Well, normally you will go into your, Hacky Fibrex around here by using Lamia and this. This time you're actually going to use Cross Sheep and Lamia in order to just essentially give yourself the other another monster that you need on the field to go into the Union Carrier. You're then going to use Hacky Fibrex to summon the Ghost. Ghost will then give you the ability to summon the Lamia because those two have been summoned. One thing should be mentioned about these two before we go into the Union Carrier. You do need to have the zone open up by occupied by one of them, a zone that like Hacky Fibrex point to that is not closed by, two monsters or one of the monsters. Like, you need the zone open because you need to specifically for this combo to work to use these two to summon up your Union Carrier. So I just go to say that. You're going to then use these two obviously to make the Union Carrier. And then you're going to use Ghost Effect to ditch another Lamia into your graveyard. We're then going to use Lamia's effect, surprisingly enough, to make out, to summon it back, then then using it and getting itself into the banish to make a Savage because we already have a Link monster in your graveyard, so we can use that. And then we're going to equip, obviously, the Cross Sheep. We're then going to use Union Carrier effect to equip ourselves the Dragon Buster Destruction Sword in order to give ourselves the lock. And then we're going to use the two last remaining DDD monsters on the field, or DD monsters on the field, to make up Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh is going to pull up the two preferred monsters from our deck, which then we're going to use the effect of Apocalypse to special summon itself, and then immediately triggering out the effect of Ragnarok because we technically don't really have anything else to summon because Lamia already used effect, and then we're going to use Lamia's to special summon Lamia, and Ghost will return Zero Slime in order to have something next turn. Then you're going to make the Siegfried, and then you're going to pass. Now, why do I think this end board is a little bit stronger than the usual end board? Well, because we have this one. While we do give a little bit of the option of having a third negation, we still have the option to go into Satellite Warrior. And an Omni Negate is a little bit better than just a Monster Negate, so just going into that is a little bit more powerful. So you have Spell and Trap Negation, and then Omni Negate, as well as a lock and an option to go with this too, go into Formula Synchron and these two to go into the so-called Satellite in order to disrupt your opponent, which I think overall is a little bit better. But that's pretty much does it for combo number 1. Let's move on to combo number 2. Alright, so for this particular combo, you open up really badly, let's say. These two, again, should not matter, but let's say we're cutting these 3. This is not a really optimal hand, but you can still make that work, and I'm going to show you how with the 2 additional monsters I have in my extra deck. So first things first, you're going to activate Ragnarok, then normal summon the Kepler. Kepler obviously going to grab yourself the Gate. The Gate will then specifically going to grab the Lamia because you want the Lamia in your hand, because a Necro Slime will not help you, but the Lamia will, because then you're going to summon the Genghis, and then Ragnarok is going to allow you to summon the Lamia, and then Zero Slime will be summoned by the effect of Genghis. You're then immediately going to go into Hacky Fibrex because you really need something to get you out of this situation because it kind of sucks. So you are going to go into Hacky Fibrex, which is then going to give you another, Lamia into your side of the field. You're then going to use Lamia and this in order to make the card that's just pretty much going to get you out of the sticky situation, the second one, which is going to be Meteor Burst. Meteor Burst is then going to summon Ragnarok directly from your skill, and then you're going to use Ragnarok effect to special summon the Genghis in defense position. You're then going to summon the Lamia by sending the Contract, and then you're going to make a Crystal Wing, and then you're going to use your 2 last monsters to make up your Union Carrier because your 2 last monsters are essentially not useful, and I'm going to explain this. Even if we don't have them in your deck, it doesn't really matter because technically you don't really have enough resources to even just have anything. You have just a Lamia and Zero Slime in your graveyard to banish for your Apocalypse, and Apocalypse will not really do anything because you don't really have the special summoning effect, so you cannot really make another interruption.
but you could equip with Union Carrier the Buster, and then still have technically 2 interruptions / 3 if you want specifically, and then you also have the essential lock that lock your opponent out of your extra deck, which is pretty cool. So you made a pretty much a bad hand kind of working. But that's pretty much does it for combo number 2. Let's go up to combo number 3. Alright, so for combo number 3, let's say we open up with all 3 of your starters and nothing else, it's still going to work. This is pretty much going to evolve in the same way of combo number 1, but unlike combo number 1 that we did before, we're not going to go into the Union Carrier route, we're going to show the original, or should I say route before adding the Union Carrier. So you're going to see how I'm going to do that, if you are interested in this particular path. To start things off, we're going to normal summon the Kepler, obviously going to grab the Gate. Gate will then grab either Lamia or Necro Slime, doesn't really matter, but for this particular case I decided to grab the Lamia. You then go to fuse the Lamia and Zero Slime, again doesn't really matter if you fuse Zero Slime and Copernicus, one of the two, it doesn't really matter. The point is just use it in the way that you see fit. Banish the Zero Slime, summon the Lamia back by the effect of Genghis, and then send to the graveyard by the effect of Copernicus, the missing piece. You then go into pretty much go into your Alexander. You do have to have the Lamia, however, being summoned, so I'm just going to say that you do have to have the Lamia being summoned. So if you do have Copernicus in a way, like you do need to be this to be a chain link wine all the time. So like if you didn't really like the Lamia need to be summoned, so you'll be able to make the Alexander. I'm just going to mention that. Then you're going to use the Cross Sheep. Obviously, you're going to banish your 2 cards to make the Big Genghis. Big Genghis will then again summon to you the Lamia. Or should I say Cross Sheep will then summon you the Lamia, and then Big Genghis will summon you the Alexander. And since we are going to go Haki Fibrex like normally do, we're going to use these 2 right now and make the Haki Fibrex in the main monster zone, which is then going to allow us to summon the Ghost, which then Alexander will then special summon the Lamia Graveyard. We're then going to summon a Crystal Wing in defense position, because technically we don't really have anything to protect in our spells and trap zones later, and essentially, like, if you don't really have anything that you care about, it doesn't really matter. The Lightning Storm is not going to hit you, so you rather summon these monsters in defense position, so their negation will not go into something stupid like Lightning Storm. So then you're going to make the Gilgamesh, obviously. You're going to equip these 2 monsters into your scales after you send another Lamia into your graveyard, because why not? You can just have another Foolish Burial of a Lamia to then get another resource for next turn. And then you obviously equip Apocalypse and Ragnarok. You're then going to use Apocalypse effect to summon itself from the scale by banishing these 2. And then you're going to pretty much use Ghost effect without using Ragnarok effect to return your small Genghis. And then you're going to use Lamia's effect to send up the Dark Contract to get itself into your side of the field. Which this is the place that I made the mistake. I essentially just did a little bit of a weird play that I just like summoned before, like I didn't summon 6 monsters, but I just did incorrectly that I just like summoned Genghis before or a little bit later. But regardless, the point is you are now going to Siegfried, which is still going to allow you to essentially summon to put the small Genghis in your graveyard, right? Which then will give you the ability to trigger Ragnarok effect to summon your Genghis in your side of the field. And this pretty much was the original combo line. And again, like I said, summon the monsters in defense position, because if you don't care about the Lightning Storm, right, you don't really want to get pretty much interrupted with it and just waste your Siegfried or Savage so-called interruption on something that's just going to kill you for no good reason. Because, you know, you don't really have spell and traps and they cannot destroy monsters that in defense position. So that will become handy. So again, this is the original combo end board. You end up with 2 interruptions, then this can turn up to either with, you know, the formula, either into Savage or Satellite, whatever these 2 that you want to. But yeah, this is pretty much the end board overall. And that's also pretty much does it for the video. 3 combos, a lot of things to go that we have gone through, and I'm hoping you particularly enjoy this one. Obviously, I'm not going to make videos like this all the time because they're really hard, but when I will be able to, I'm very much enjoying making these. And let me know in the comments down below, and again, follow me on social media in order to find out what the next deck I'm going to do, as well as what the next archetype you want me to handle up from the archetypes that I'm going to give to you. So that's pretty much it. 3 combos, deck profile, budget options, everything. See you next time. Remember, creativity is the key in this game. Have a good day. Stay safe. Bye bye.